Thank you. In that specific case, the incentive was that developers have responsibilities to mitigate impacts on wetlands, so that creates a market for wetlands that have been protected that they can buy, essentially. They can buy the credits as mitigation. So the legal framework in that particular case exists to create a market for the ecosystem service of wetland protection and restoration and creation, but in our case that's not what we're doing. Our work, putting on my solutions from the land hat, our group on ecosystem services, payments for ecosystem services, markets for ecosystem services, tried to create a framework in which we could help people understand this huge amorphous topic called payments and markets for ecosystem services. Markets, generally are ground up and, emerge. Just think about cell phone apps and all the, millions of creative ideas people can have. So they don't lend themselves well to easy definitions and categorizations. But thinking sort of big picture, you've got existing markets for, timber is an ecosystem service, wheat is an ecosystem service. You've got good markets for a certain subset of ecosystem services, and those are ones that tend to be ones with clear property rights, so you and I can trade the piece of wood. And the information that lets us know that we get a good deal or not, and therefore want to repeat the transaction is there. So those are the two kind of defining characteristics of where markets work. Then what we explored were the two axes out from that. One is places where economists call them public goods. So clean air is a good example. I can't sell you a unit of clean air because if I sold you a unit of clean air, everyone would benefit from it. So in that case, there's a role for, people call them government created or government-enabled markets, and wetland mitigation banking is a good example. The law, called the Clean Water Act, restricts and limits people's ability to dredge and fill wetlands. So if you dredge and fill a wetland in the U.S., in the water of the United States, you have to mitigate. Well, that creates a market for the service of mitigation banking. So we then are in a position where we look around and we see opportunities. We've got these lands that were drained or whatever a long time ago. We can stop that and restore the wetland. And the legal framework is there to create those credits from that. The government decides how many credits, and we bank them, and then we can sell them to people who develop. Carbon credits is an example where those markets have not emerged as clearly because the legal framework isn't, the cap, the restriction, doesn't quite exist yet very clearly. Nitrous oxide and NOx and SOx trading is the classic example of government-enabled markets. So our group explored those, and we tried to collect the stories around those and put them in our report. There's a whole, and so that's clearly one of the opportunity areas is more places to create these mitigation or compliance markets. The other side of it is information, where maybe the problem isn't that it's a public good, maybe it could be a private good, but people don't understand the value to buy and trade it. And there's a lot of really fun stuff. There's a lot of interest in pollination services. So there's some great work going on where people are looking at things where, well, if I can manage land in a natural state, I'll enhance the bee populations there, and then those bees will fly out and pollinate my nearby farmland. So we as farmers have an incentive to get together and identify and protect an area, but there's some critical information, which is like, how far do those bees fly? And are they going to fly into my land, or am I going to pay for that site and they're going to fly into my neighbor's lands? So that's an area where the information piece, and there's a role for research. So there's lots of opportunity in these areas. They're hard to put your hands around. They don't lend themselves to a nice, simple few bullets in a report, but these are places where there's room for lots of exploration and almost all positive incentives and positive systems. So it helps us clear, and